Picture this. You're lying awake at 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, your mind racing with thoughts of someone who's no longer in your life. Your heart feels like it's been shattered into 1,000 pieces, and every breath seems to carry the weight of what you've lost. The person you thought would be your forever has walked away, and you're left wondering how you'll ever recover from this devastating pain. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Love, in all its beautiful complexity, has the power to lift us to incredible heights and drop us into the deepest valleys of human experience. But what if I told you that over 2,000 years ago, ancient philosophers developed a framework that could help you navigate these treacherous waters with grace, dignity, and ultimately, peace? Welcome to the profound world of Stoicism, where we'll explore how this ancient philosophy can teach us the art of letting go when love hurts. I'm here to share with you timeless wisdom that has helped countless individuals transform their deepest heartbreak into their greatest strength. Stay with me, because by the end of this journey, you'll have practical tools to not just survive heartbreak, but to emerge from it stronger, wiser, and more resilient than ever before. Love is perhaps the most powerful force in human experience. It drives us to incredible acts of courage, creativity, and compassion. But when love turns painful, when relationships end, when the person we cherish decides to walk away, we're often left feeling completely powerless. We replay conversations over and over, wondering what we could have done differently. We bargain with the universe, hoping against hope that things might return to how they once were. The ancient Stoics understood this struggle intimately. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor who ruled over one of history's greatest empires, wrote extensively about love, loss, and the human condition in his personal journal, which we now know as Meditations. Despite having unlimited power and resources, he too grappled with the pain of human relationships and the inevitability of loss. Epictetus, who started life as a slave before becoming one of history's most influential philosophers, knew firsthand what it meant to lose everything you hold dear. His teachings on letting go weren't born from academic theory, but from lived experience of genuine suffering and the discovery of inner freedom even in the most challenging circumstances. Seneca, the advisor to emperors and one of Rome's wealthiest citizens, experienced exile, political betrayal, and personal loss. His letters to his friend Lucilius reveal a man who understood that external circumstances, including the behavior of those we love, are ultimately beyond our control. These weren't armchair philosophers offering empty platitudes. They were real people who faced real pain and developed practical strategies for dealing with life's inevitable heartbreaks. Their wisdom has survived over 2 millennia because it works. At the heart of Stoic philosophy lies a deceptively simple but profoundly powerful concept: the dichotomy of control. This principle divides everything in life into 2 categories: things we can control and things we cannot control. When it comes to love and relationships, this distinction becomes absolutely crucial. What can you control? You can control your own actions, your responses, your efforts to be a good partner, your communication, your kindness, your growth as a person. You can control how much love you give, how present you are in moments together, and how you choose to show up in the relationship every single day. What can't you control? You cannot control another person's feelings, their choices, their decision to stay or leave, their past experiences that shape how they respond to love, their fears, their dreams, or their ultimate destiny. You cannot control whether they'll choose you, whether they'll appreciate your efforts, or whether they'll love you back in the way you love them. This might sound harsh, but it's actually incredibly liberating. Think about how much energy you've spent trying to control things that were never within your power in the first place. How many sleepless nights have you endured wondering why someone doesn't love you the way you love them? How much mental anguish have you experienced trying to figure out what you could do to make someone stay? The Stoics teach us that this suffering comes not from the situation itself, but from our resistance to accepting what is beyond our control. When we truly internalize this principle, we stop wasting our precious energy on the impossible and redirect it toward what we can actually influence: our own character, our own responses, and our own path forward. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This isn't about becoming cold or detached. It's about finding your center of power and operating from that place of authentic strength. Let's address the elephant in the room. When people first encounter Stoic teachings about letting go, they often worry that this philosophy will make them cold, unfeeling, or unable to love deeply. This is a profound misunderstanding of what Stoicism actually teaches. The Stoics weren't advocating for emotional numbness, they were advocating for emotional wisdom. There's a crucial difference between suppressing your feelings and managing your relationship with them. Stoicism teaches us to feel our emotions fully while not being enslaved by them. Seneca, who wrote extensively about friendship and love, never suggested we should avoid deep connections with others. Instead, he taught that we should love wholeheartedly while accepting the impermanent nature of all earthly relationships. He wrote to his friend Lucilius, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." This wisdom doesn't diminish the reality of your pain when love hurts. Your grief is valid. Your heartbreak is real. The Stoics would never ask you to pretend otherwise. What they offer instead is a framework for moving through that pain with dignity and purpose, rather than being consumed by it. Think of it this way. When you love someone and that relationship ends, you have two choices. You can fight against reality, spending months or years in bitterness, resentment, and desperate attempts to change what cannot be changed. Or you can honor what was beautiful about that love while accepting that its time has passed, allowing yourself to grow from the experience and remain open to new possibilities. The first path leads to prolonged suffering and spiritual stagnation. The second path leads to wisdom, resilience, and continued capacity for deep connection. The Stoics consistently chose the second path, not because they felt less, but because they understood that this approach ultimately leads to greater peace and authentic happiness. Now let's get practical. How do we actually apply these ancient principles to modern heartbreak? The Stoics developed specific practices that can help you navigate the pain of lost love with grace and wisdom. First, practice the discipline of desire. This doesn't mean suppressing your longing for love or connection. It means training yourself to desire only what is within your control. Instead of desperately wanting someone to come back to you, focus your desire on becoming the kind of person who can love deeply without attachment to specific outcomes. Desire to grow from this experience, to develop greater emotional resilience, to remain open-hearted despite the pain. Second, engage in morning and evening reflection. Each morning, remind yourself of what you can and cannot control. Set intentions for how you want to show up in the world, regardless of your romantic circumstances. Each evening, review the day. Did you act with dignity? Did you honor your values? Did you respond to triggers with wisdom or react from old patterns? This isn't about judging yourself harshly, but about honest self-assessment that leads to growth. Third, practice negative visualization, but with compassion. The Stoics regularly imagined losing what they valued most, not to become pessimistic, but to increase their appreciation for what they currently have and reduce their attachment to specific outcomes. If you're currently in a relationship, occasionally reflect on its impermanent nature. This isn't morbid thinking, it's preparation that allows you to love more fully in the present moment while building resilience for whatever the future may hold. Fourth, reframe your narrative. Instead of seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances or someone else's choices, see yourself as the protagonist of your own story. What lessons is this experience teaching you? How is this challenge making you stronger? What aspects of your character are being refined in the fire of this difficulty? The Stoics believed that every obstacle contains within it an opportunity for growth and virtue. Let me share with you the story of James, a successful architect who came across Stoic philosophy during one of the darkest periods of his life. He had been married for 12 years when his wife told him she had fallen in love with someone else and wanted a divorce. Everything he had built his identity around seemed to crumble overnight. Initially, James did what most of us do. He begged, pleaded, and tried desperately to convince her to stay. He analyzed every conversation, every moment where things might have gone wrong. He lost sleep, lost weight, and nearly lost his job as his performance suffered under the weight of his emotional turmoil. A friend recommended a book about Stoicism, and James, desperate for any kind of relief, decided to give it a try. At first, the ideas seemed too simple, almost insulting to the magnitude of his pain. But as he began to practice the discipline of control, something shifted. He stopped trying to control his ex-wife's feelings and focused instead on controlling his own responses. He began each day by writing down 3 things within his control: his effort at work, his kindness toward his children, and his commitment to personal growth. He ended each day by reflecting on how well he had honored these commitments. Slowly, James began to see his divorce not as a failure or tragedy, but as an opportunity to discover who he was outside of that relationship. He started pursuing interests he had neglected, reconnected with old friends, and eventually began dating again from a place of wholeness rather than neediness. 2 years later, James met Sarah, and their relationship was built on a completely different foundation. Because he had learned to love without attachment to specific outcomes, he was able to be fully present with Sarah while maintaining his own sense of identity and purpose. The pain of his divorce had transformed into wisdom that made him a better partner. James often says that his divorce was one of the most painful experiences of his life, but also one of the most important. It taught him that he could survive anything and that his happiness didn't depend on another person's choices. This is the power of Stoic wisdom applied to real-life heartbreak. One of the most challenging aspects of letting go is dealing with the mental loops that keep us trapped in the past. You know what I'm talking about. Those endless replays of conversations, the constant wondering about what could have been different, the scenarios you create where everything works out perfectly if only certain conditions had been met. The Stoics had a specific practice for dealing with these mental patterns. They called it the discipline of assent, which means carefully examining our thoughts before accepting them as truth. When your mind starts spinning stories about the past or future, pause and ask yourself, is this thought helpful? Is it based in reality or assumption? Does entertaining this thought move me closer to or further from my values and goals? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. This applies directly to the thoughts that torture us after a relationship ends. You cannot control the fact that certain memories exist, but you can control how much attention you give them and what meaning you assign to them. Here's a practical exercise. When you notice yourself getting caught in a mental loop about your past relationship, Immediately shift your attention to the present moment. Name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. This grounds you in reality and breaks the cycle of rumination. Another powerful Stoic technique is to practice viewing your situation from different perspectives. Imagine how you'll view this heartbreak 5 years from now. What would you tell a good friend going through the same situation? How would Marcus Aurelius or Epictetus counsel you in this moment? This isn't about minimizing your pain, but about gaining perspective that can help you respond with wisdom rather than react from emotion. The Stoics also understood that grief is a natural and necessary process. They didn't advocate for skipping over difficult emotions, but rather for moving through them with intention and purpose. Set aside specific time for grieving. Allow yourself to feel the sadness, anger, or disappointment fully. But also set boundaries around this grief time so it doesn't consume your entire life. Perhaps the most radical aspect of Stoic philosophy is its teaching on gratitude in the face of loss. This might seem impossible when you're dealing with heartbreak, but bear with me because this practice can be transformative. The Stoics believed that every experience, even painful ones, contains gifts if we're willing to look for them. This doesn't mean being grateful for the pain itself, but being grateful for what the pain reveals about your capacity to love, your resilience, your values, and your opportunity for growth. What has this heartbreak taught you about yourself? Perhaps you've discovered inner strength you didn't know you possessed. Maybe you've learned to set better boundaries or recognize red flags you previously ignored. Perhaps this experience has deepened your compassion for others who are suffering or clarified what you truly want in a relationship. Seneca wrote extensively about the practice of loving fate, or amor fati. This doesn't mean pretending to be happy about difficult circumstances, but rather accepting them as part of your unique path and finding ways to extract wisdom and strength from them. Consider keeping a gratitude journal specifically focused on lessons learned from this difficult experience. Each week, write down 1 thing this heartbreak has taught you about yourself, 1 way it has made you stronger, or 1 insight it has provided about what you want in future relationships. Over time, you'll begin to see how this painful chapter is actually contributing to your growth as a human being. This practice helps shift your identity from victim to student, from someone life happens to, into someone who learns and grows from whatever life presents. This fundamental shift in perspective is at the heart of Stoic resilience. As we near the end of our exploration together, I want to address what letting go actually means in practical terms. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting the person you loved or pretending the relationship didn't matter. It doesn't mean becoming cynical about love or closing your heart to future possibilities. Letting go means releasing your grip on outcomes you cannot control. It means accepting that some chapters of your life have ended and trusting that new chapters can begin. It means honoring what was beautiful about your past while not allowing that past to imprison your future. The Stoics teach us that we are not defined by what happens to us, but by how we respond to what happens to us. Your heartbreak does not define you. Your resilience, your capacity to grow, your ability to love again despite the risk of future pain, these are what define you. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. In the context of heartbreak, the best response to someone who has hurt you is not bitterness or resentment, but continued growth, compassion, and openness to love. This isn't about them, it's about you becoming the person you're meant to be. Epictetus, who understood suffering intimately, taught that we cannot control our initial emotional reactions, but we can control our secondary responses. You cannot control feeling sad when love ends, but you can control whether you spiral into despair or use that sadness as fuel for personal growth. The art of letting go is exactly that, an art. It requires practice, patience, and compassion toward yourself. Some days you'll feel strong and wise. Other days you'll feel like you're back at square one. This is normal and human. The Stoics would remind you that progress, not perfection, is the goal. Let me leave you with this final thought from Marcus Aurelius. Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight. The end of one relationship creates space for new possibilities. The pain you feel now is evidence of your capacity to love deeply. That capacity hasn't been diminished by this experience. It's been refined and strengthened. Your journey through heartbreak is not a detour from your path. It is your path. Each step you take with wisdom and courage is shaping you into someone capable of deeper love, greater resilience, and more authentic happiness. The ancient Stoics faced their own heartbreaks with dignity and wisdom, and their teachings have survived over 2,000 years because they work. You have within you right now the same capacity for resilience and wisdom that they possessed. Trust in your ability to not just survive this difficult time, but to emerge from it stronger and more open-hearted than ever before. If this exploration of Stoic wisdom has resonated with you, I encourage you to continue this journey. Subscribe to our channel for more practical philosophy that can transform your daily life. Share this video with someone who might need to hear these ideas. Leave a comment below sharing one insight that particularly spoke to you, or tell us about your own journey with letting go. Remember, you're not walking this path alone. Thousands of years of human wisdom support you, and a community of people committed to growth and resilience surrounds you. The art of letting go when love hurts is not just about surviving heartbreak. It's about transforming that heartbreak into wisdom, strength, and an even greater capacity for authentic love. Until next time, remember that you have everything within you to not just endure whatever life brings, but to thrive because of it. The Stoics believed in you, and so do I.